Hello, my friend, and welcome to the 568th episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have Dr. Tom Tonkin. He is got a PhD in organizational leadership, former professor, turned sales guru. He was in sales, got into scholarship, did well in sales, wanted to leave a legacy. That's all I'm going to tell you, all right? But a good guy, super smart guy, obviously. But his approach is correct. And, you know, the title of this on the blog is Why Admitting It's All Your Fault is Best for Growth. And we get into that. And it's deep. And I followed that principle for quite a while as well. I heard something similar years ago. And, you know, stop placing the blame. Own the solution. Take responsibility. Okay, empower yourself. That's the key. That's what makes great salespeople great, is that they connect all the dots, they bring all the people together, they find a way to make it happen. So that's why you're listening to this. You're either on that path, you either arrived, right? But you know there's no true destination. You just are constantly growing, or you want to get on that journey. Okay, but either way, stay plugged in. Keep investing in yourself. Had a new member today join us, so it's exciting. In the Sell More of Everything group, I ordered some new T-shirts. You're going to be seeing some new branding coming out. I'm going to merge some things, so stay tuned. Fun times. Even the kids like it, so you know it's a good sign when the kids like what you're working on. But you will like it as well. More in-depth interviews, more updated content. If you're following me on LinkedIn, you're seeing a lot of things I'm putting out there. If you're not following me, please do. And I will share with you some little tips and insights down the road on how I'm using that to grow. It has been a cool adventure. All right. So come join us, sellmoreofeverything.com. Every Monday, we're getting after it. You can ask questions live anytime you want on our Facebook group, and I will answer them usually the same day, if not the same hour. All right? Come join us, and then come listen to this interview with Dr. Tom Tonkin. Dr. Tom Tonkin. All right, man. Founder of the Sales Conservatory, all the way from, what do we say? Is it Castle Rock?
It's Castle Rock. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Castle
Not too
Rock.
far away from where you were.
All
You
right.
were hanging out.
Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
Well, very good, sir. I would never think that someone like you would actually want to get a guy like me, a doctor. I mean, doesn't that turn you off already?
Well, so see, here's what I do, man. I get these smart people, these attorneys and PhDs, and then I make you cry. And then everyone realizes that I have the power. Come to the dark side. Tom, I am your father. And then
Yeah, but it's like, you walk in, it's like sometimes I had a PhD guy that graduated with me, and he says, Tom, the only time I ever use my doctor thing is to get table reservations.
Nice.
And mind you, like my kids would say, I'm a PhD, so I'm not like a real doctor.
So you may know some people. I imagine it's a small world, but I know several PhDs in organizational leadership. You ever run across Billy Blair?
Mm-hmm.
Know her?
Yep.
She's out here near me. I've got to know her over the years. And Alan Weiss, of course, he's big time author.
One of the things we all do is if you think about sort of the PhD world, and this is just in the U.S., it's much smaller across. It's less than 2% of the population has a PhD in anything, right? So then you start whittling down to disciplines, and what ends up happening is you end up reading other people's stuff, like you get to know them that way. Usually, if you're like a professor, like I was for a while, you get to know your students so well that you don't even need to talk to them. You know them through their writing or through their thought process. And it's the same thing here, where sometimes you have an idea and you go scout out somebody that potentially may disagree with you, but you don't have to do it. You just go read their stuff and see what they have to say. So yeah,
it's interesting you say that. I'm listening to this Bible in a Year podcast, and one of the I guess developers this priest is going through it, but he's following this program. He brings on the guy that helped create it, and they were talking about, I think it was Mark, but they were talking about how they think maybe like Peter wrote it, or Mark was kind of a follower, disciple of Peter, but he wrote it down, but they could tell by the tonality or whatever, the little quirks that, oh, this is probably somebody else's writing. So it's interesting you say that.
Yeah. So I guess, I happen to know a lot about that stuff specifically. It just so happens. The consensus in scholars is that Mark was basically documenting Peter's life and then kind of abstracting into something that people wanted to use. As a matter of fact, he was actually, out of the 4 gospels, he was the first one to start writing. That was because that's when you start finding not necessarily the contradictions, but working off of it. Like Luke, we know Luke's is the last one to be written. And then there's certain parts of John. Anyway, we digress. But yes, that's exactly the case. You end up learning the language and what they lean on and what's arguably their bias. And that works in our realm as well.
So, like you said, not too many have a PhD. We call it piled high and deep, right?
That's
right?
Correct.
All right. So if you're full of crap, it's no wonder you got into sales, right?
That's right. And I end up being damn good at it because you've got to be full of crap, right? So let's just go down the stereotype.
That does seem like a big leap. Organizational leadership into sales training and consulting. So what led you down that path?
Well, it's interesting. So let's, we reverse back. I did get into sales before I got into the academy, as they call it. And I was, I would say I would be an above average salesperson. I'm not going to say I was great. It's just, made quota. There's only 1 year out of my quota making years that I didn't make it out of 12 years. And that actually was funny because I took a page out of Captain Kirk's book and I renegotiated my quota that year. So I quote unquote made it, but if we stuck to the letter of the law, I didn't make it that year. So my boss saw that I was pretty good at what I did. And so my other peers were kind of sort of having a hard time. So he said, hey, why don't you go over there and give him a hand? So I did, right? And I was like, how hard could this possibly be? I'll just tell him what to do. Chuckle. And I did, and it was okay. There's some hits, some misses, kind of thing. It was more just, giving them what I did, which doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you should be doing. And then boss goes, well, all right, enough of that. Get back to work and go sell some more. That probably happened about 2 or 3 more times, to the point where I came to a realization that said, okay, you can't do both, right? You either sell for a living, quota, and do all the salesmanship and customer contact, or you enable people to sell. That's a thing onto itself. And it was probably about early 2000s that I made the flip. I just said, I'm going to go to training. Part of it was because I wanted to leave a legacy. Like there's only so much things you can sell, and I wanted to help other people do well as well, and be happy. Once I did that, then I found like I was missing a whole bunch of like teaching and learning skills and research skills and all of the stuff that you need to help people become better at whatever. So I went back to school, got my master's, got my PhD. There are no PhDs in selling. But at the same time, you and I both know that really selling comes down to a lot of people skills and soft skills and that kind of thing, and getting to know people's behavior. So organizational leadership is probably the closest thing that I got to do that. And, I think I guessed right as far as the degree was concerned, to help people out. So here we are. I'm talking to you and I formulating things and kind of being like the scientist of sales, and helping people use the research, use the science, and move people forward to performing better.
Well, we have computers, man. We have templates in Word. We should just make some certificates and just charge a lot of money, and we can just like start issuing some PhDs in sales. What do you think?
I'm all for it.
Hey, I got a trademark. I got a little circle R thingy on the Sales Whisperer. So like that's credibility right there.
That's right. Department of Education might have an issue with that, but who needs them anyway?
Come on, man. We just got to make a few donations to the right people. I mean, look, let's be honest. Okay. But anyway.
I honestly think that there should be. I mean, there are a few. I mean degrees. I think one of them is there's a master's of sales, I think, out of Northwestern. I'm not sure. But there are some people that are kind of peeking into that. Most of it are like certificates and things like that. Yeah. But even the content there, I don't agree, because it's very process oriented.
Yeah.
You know, funnels and things like that. And it's that's just sort of that's the tools, right? It's like the shop rags. If you go get your car serviced, you pay and you want your car serviced, but they don't like stick the shop rags in your trunk, and they like, and by the way, here's the wrenches I used to fix your car, right? I mean, that's shop rags. And so when I think of things like funnels and templates and things like that, those are the shop rags. I don't want those things. I want the end result of those things.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of this too, like I see these things, programs, on entrepreneurship. I'm like, who's teaching this thing? You're going to go to school and get a degree in entrepreneurship. It's like sales is a full contact sport, man. You gotta get after it. I was telling this story the other day. When COVID hit, they locked everything down, right? So we closed our jiu-jitsu school. And one of the guys that I follow, a big teacher, he said, hey, any of my courses, you can get one of my courses, any of them, for free. You're training at home. And he was smart, right? He got his, I'd never bought anything from him before. I'd followed him like on Instagram and stuff, little tips.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, I'll do that. And then boom, he took you to a bonus, right? Hey, 50% off your next purchase. So I was like, that's fair. So boom, I bought one. So he got his, my first sale he made, doing that. So I took that video. So I studied one of them, and then our school opened and blah, blah, blah. So it took me a while to watch the second one. It was 90 minutes. And I did it on a Sunday. I watched 45 minutes of it. It took me 90 minutes to watch half of it, because I was rewinding. And, and it was for really one basic move. And it's not basic, but it was an attack. So I went Monday morning, 6 a.m. In the first 5 seconds, I screwed up the move, because I was doing it alone. And there are all these nuances that you do not catch until you engage, right? So somebody could spend 4 years getting a sales degree, but if you're not actually doing it, I'm working with a company right now. They sell tiny homes, and I was on site with them last week, and I things weren't clicking for them. So give me the phone. So I started taking calls, and they filmed me. I've never sold a tiny home.
That's right.
But I know people. And, they were like, had this old guy on the phone, and he wasn't wanting to talk. He didn't trust salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, hey, is this for you or a family member? He's like, yes. And they were all like, oh, I would have quit right then and there. So I just took a breath, and I go,
yeah.
I just repeated myself, but
yep.
very calm. We're in the South. I'm from the South. I get these people.
Yeah.
I said, so is it for you or for someone in your family? Well, I got some property. I'm thinking about doing it for one of my grandsons.
Yeah.
Now we're off to the races.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
But I had to show them, and then to their credit, they're like, oh, okay. Boom, they got on the phones, and they messed up. But I'm like, hey, this will be your worst call. Then your next one will be your second worst and your third worst, and then you won't really have any bad calls. Yep. But you gotta do it, right? People are afraid of doing.
I mean, I agree with you. And I mean, there's a couple things. And again, one of the things that we bring to this discussion is all of the science and because I consider myself a professional, a craftsperson in this space of selling. And I go beyond, right? It's more the advanced. I like talking to salespeople that treat it as their craft, not their job. We have a saying around here that basically says, are you a sales professional or someone that sells? Because there's a lot of people that just sell. Then there's people that are sales professional. You, being a ex-football player, would appreciate this as the analogy that I have is if you look at the NFL, you play the game on Sunday, you win or lose. Then on Monday, you probably rest. Maybe you talk about the win or loss. On Tuesday, you start thinking about getting back into the swing of things. Maybe you start getting the play, the plays ready for next week, and you start doing some walkthroughs. Maybe you hit the gym. You're sleeping well. You're eating well. And then finally, come Sunday, you play the game again. Well, Monday through Saturday, you're not playing the game. You're doing all of this other stuff that professional athletes do. And then you play the game. I see a lot of salespeople play the game every single day. Right? No eating well, no sleeping well, no sharpening the saw, not doing research on their prospect, not just or winging it or whatever it may be. And I just don't think, imagine if you place that same metaphor over top of a football player. I mean, they'd be dead by Wednesday. If they played a 60-minute football game every single day, I wouldn't make the week. Why, as sales professionals, do we believe we're going to do the same? And so what we do is we try to teach people all of those things that you do Monday through Saturday. Because then you'll need all of those to get prepared for when Sunday shows up.
Mm-hmm.
But
a lot of guys hate practice.
Oh, I'm not saying that it's easy, but I'm saying that if you're committed, if you're a sales professional and you want to be the best at that, I don't want to pull out all the corny athletic analogies, but heck, right? I mean, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. I mean, look at all these guys. Steph Curry, on and on and on and on. We're in basketball finals now. You could find them in YouTube. These guys are spending an extraordinary amount of time practicing, getting ready, doing this thing before they play the game.
Yeah. But Tom, look, man, I'm not on the camera. I don't have a $50 million contract. I can fail in obscurity. All right, I miss a sale. I'll make up on the next one. It's not that big a deal, man. And besides, my boss is a jerk. Our product is overpriced. Our warranty sucks. And, I'm probably looking to go somewhere else anyway.
Yeah, those are all really, really good excuses. As a matter of fact, I noticed that all of your excuses were placed on other people. So when I coach sales,
because I'm the shizzle, man. When I fail, it's their fault. Okay, I'm a great salesman.
You're absolutely right. But let me give you a perspective here. So when I coach salespeople, and everything you just said is exactly what, when they first come to me, like, Tom, you don't understand. Our product sucks. You don't understand. Our prices are too high. You don't understand the customer's objections. Really, they've got it figured out. And so then this is the one question I ask. Well, what about your leadership could have changed that? And the reason I ask this is as follows. If you think about it, let's say you blame somebody or something. What you do simultaneously is you smuggle away the solution. My point is, Wes, if I were to say it's all Wes's fault, the reason I have a terrible life, it's all of your fault, then you also own the solution to my better life, because it's all your fault. And so now what do? I'm hamstrung. There's nothing I can do. And so therefore I wallow in my self-pity. Okay, fine. The product is too expensive. What do you do about it? What are you going to do about that? Sure, you can walk away, go find something else. And you probably will find that same excuse wherever else you go. However, let's talk about that objection. That objection is, I'm sorry, Mr. Customer. If you think my product is too expensive, it's because I have done a terrible job explaining the value that we bring. Because anytime somebody says something's expensive is they don't understand the value that I bring. And so can you help me out and let me try again? Right. So now you've gone from some price on some list to having a value discussion. Because that value discussion is you either have not provided value to your customer or your customer doesn't need the thing you said they need. But both those things I can fix. I can fix those things. I can't fix the freaking number on the price list.
Oh, yeah, I can. I'll go beg and plead for a 30% discount, because I really don't want to fight this guy and I don't have the tools to do it.
Okay, so then what you've done is you've displaced the problem from the price list to the person that you're going to have to beg and plead to give you the discount. Once again, you have smuggled away the solution to your problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the question I ask people is what it is about your leadership, and I'm using that in a sort of a very broad sense, that made that problem happen. And then usually the first thing people do is they take offense. What do you mean it's my problem? What are you talking about? It's their problem. And then I explain to them, well, if it's their problem, it's also their solution. You start bringing them over. So every time I see a problem, I go, okay, what about my leadership that made that happen? Now, mind you, this is not 100% foolproof, but I will tell you what it is 100%. 100% of the time, you have an action to take. You have an action to take. You don't sit around and wallow in your pity and blame everybody else and then suck at your job. And guess what? You will find a solution sometime. And that solution will come over and over and over. And it becomes repetitive and you become a sales professional, not just somebody that sells.
Mm-hmm. They've got to have that desire, huh? Can you help them find it? I think sometimes people are so jaded, so beat down. I've always said I rehabilitate salespeople and train their managers.
I will say that their manager is a linchpin to how your sales trajectory will go.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we feed that loop all poorly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, one of the things I'm working on is some research around how do you get your first sales leader job. And one of the prerequisites is you have to retire quota. Right. You're not going to get on the short list of being a sales manager or director if you're not closing quota, which I think is kind of ridiculous, actually. And you think about it. I have to be a really, really good salesperson to then get a job that has little to do with sales. I'm a sales manager. The only person you're selling, if you're just doing if you're taking care of your team, is your people. Right? And so what happens is if I have all of the standard sales skills that allow me to retire quota for 3 years in a row, it's most likely I'm not going to have the sales manager leadership skills as well. Certainly not, how should I say, nurtured. And so what do? We go get the best sales guy who just retired quota, make them the manager, and then they go what? Oh, now I'm going to become super salesperson. I'm going to use all my standard sales skills. And then guess what? I hate you because I don't need you to be the super salesperson. I need you to be my manager, my leader, my guide, my coach. And for the last 3 years, guess what? You haven't been doing that because guess what? You've been selling.
Exactly.
So maybe it might be better for when we do what I call a reboarding exercise. You hear of onboarding, a reboarding to say, okay, let's take a look at our staff and say, who would make the best sales manager? And I'm here to tell you that if you can get past the retire quota, you're probably going to find yourself some really good managers.
Mm-hmm.
Because they probably have those skills. And that's probably what's stopping them from selling, right? They coach other people. They lead. Go back to the first thing I said on this call. You cannot be a salesperson and a sales trainer, sales enablement at the same time. And so many people, those coaches that make great managers and they're salespeople, they're probably not doing well selling. And so they fall off the radar. They don't go to President's Club, which means they don't shake the CEO's hand and blah, blah, blah. And they don't get recognized. There's a great interview with Carly Fiorina, the HP person that ran for president. She talks about succession planning when she was at HP. And she said the number one key to succession planning, meaning finding your next manager leader, is familiarity. So what she used to do once a month is she used to get all of her people in the room and say, okay, all of you tell me about your people. So everybody would tell people, this is what this guy does. This is what this lady does. This is that they just had a baby, right? I mean, whatever it was. And they did this over and over every month. And then what happened was there was finally an opening. There was like, we need somebody. Then they would come up and say, well, what kind of person do we need? Instead of the person sort of dipping into their own pool, they would say, you know something, Wes, that guy that works for you, I think he'd be great for that job. Do you mind giving me to him? And you'd be like, yeah, of course, because that's going to elevate him. And I think he'd be great and whatever. And you start making good decisions about succession planning. We don't do that in sales. I mean, you kidding me? We look at somebody and go, okay, who retired quota first? Oh, this guy retired quota lately. So, and the job just opened up today, which means you were short-sighted. It's called recency biased. And we go grab the one person and we say, okay, boom, you're retired quota, yesterday. And so therefore you become a manager today. I mean, I say it out loud and it should sound silly to everybody, but tell me that doesn't happen.
Should companies bring someone in from the outside? Because let's say I know there's a high likelihood that the younger Wes who's hitting quota sees somebody I've run laps around for 3 years get promoted and become my boss all of a sudden. Part of me would go, man, I hate paperwork. I'm glad that dude has it. I don't want to be staring at Excel spreadsheets and sit through staff meetings. I just want to sell some shit, get out of my way. But a big part of me with the ego would say, screw that guy, screw this company. What are they doing? So do you run the risk of losing your good salespeople? And maybe that guy isn't a good manager. Maybe you should have brought somebody in from the outside.
Yeah, so that's two questions. So let's go question number one on somebody on the outside. The only reason I would ever bring somebody from the outside is if you are trying to change culture. And the problem is the people above that person are also accountable to that culture change. And I rarely see that. People usually bring on the outside. It's like managing by exclusion, right? It's like, everyone on my team sucks because no one made quota. Therefore, I have to bring somebody from the outside. Now, that might be true in the sense that you're trying to change some kind of cultural behavior or tone, if you will. But again, did you take a look at your people for what they were as management potential, leadership potential, not from a retiring quota perspective? That's one thing. Second thing you're talking about, that person that got passed over, if you will. See, that's the problem. That's the culture in sales as a whole. Is we have telegraphed to them saying if you get a manager, you've been quote unquote passed over. But in essence, what we're saying is, if we move you, we lose the best sales guy on the street. That's the message. Like, why would you want to take your best salesperson off the street, put him in a place where he's probably not going to have the skill and not be able to be as effective to your revenue, and try to manage people that are less effective than he was? I mean, it's like a double whammy.
Yeah.
But we have.
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time. But for whatever reason, we breed that passing over as a term within sales. I mean, face it. I mean, I've done research on this. A sales organization is thriving when your salespeople are making more than your manager. I mean, right? I mean, that makes sense, doesn't it? So what you're going to do is you're going to take your best revenue generating person, heck, maybe pay him less because he's going to be commissioned on his team, which, by the way, is not doing well, hence having a new manager. So it's like double whammy. I mean, I had a guy I worked with. I mean, he's, terrific salesperson. He understood that math all day long. And he said, I want to be super salesperson. I don't want to report anybody. I don't want to look at a QBR spreadsheet unless I have to for my own. Yes, I am self-centered, right? I mean, highly, highly self-aware, but yet they're like, well, we need to promote you because you'll leave and we need to give you more money. But if we promote you, you have to have people working for you. I'm like, that's the last thing I want. So he negotiated himself some VP job where he had nobody working for him. And guess what? He just sold.
There you go.
And made even more money because now he's got the VP title. He doesn't have anybody. He's only working off his own commission, his own quota, his own everything, making a mint. Arguably few and far between. But I mean, that's the paradigm, right? That's the culture that we're trying to swim upstream. And I'm not necessarily sure that we're going to fix it on this call for sure.
We can get started. Start moving in that direction. So let's go back to salespeople, though. Just before this call, right? I had to cut my son short. He's new in real estate. He's been at it a couple of years, and newlywed. Got married 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And but he's a great salesman, great entrepreneur. But a little self-doubt, right? He's still new at real estate. And the Fed just announced today another 75 basis points, and people are saying it's going to be more and more is coming. And it is an interesting time, right? People are super low interest rates. They, like you said, I got one couple wants to downsize, needs to downsize, but he's like, because of rates, they'll sell their house, they'll pocket the money, but their new house will cost them more.
Dude, that's where I am now. So I'm an empty nester and I'm sitting on 5,000 square feet of house, me and my wife. It's like they're wings of our house that we don't even go to. My interest rate, I refi back in the good old days. I think I'm at a little less than 2. I'm 1 something percentage. I'm at 15 years. But I've got this big house. And so I'm like, okay, I mean, they want to give me a ton of money for it, more money than I would ever pay for my own house.
Yep.
And yet, where am I going to go? Yep. Yeah, I get it. So I'm sorry, I cut you off because I was just commiserating with that. But what's going on with him?
So what do you tell salespeople right now that maybe have some self-doubt? I mean, he is I don't know that I would call him a professional salesperson yet, only because he's still young.
Yep.
He is an aspiring professional salesperson. He's hungry, right? He studies, he approaches things with the right mindset. He seeks to serve, so he's.
Let me ask you a question.
He's a young professional salesperson.
Yeah. Let me ask a question. So is he selling homes? Is that what he's doing?
Selling homes, representing buyers. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I was working with a real estate person. So I'm going to answer this in 2 phases. I'm going to ask what I think he should be doing and then what he should be doing today. One of the things that salespeople don't quite understand, especially real estate agents, is we focus too much on the product and the quality of the home and all this other stuff. We don't necessarily focus on the emotional side. If there's ever an emotional purchase in our lives, it's our home. One of the things that I told a real estate agent to do when they were having a hard time was, did you ever go see their current home? And they go, well, no. I'm like, because you're going to get clues. So what I asked the salesperson said, I want you to ask them to go see their home. And then I want you to go room to room and I want you to ask them questions about their lifestyle in that home. And so they did that. Well, I'll give you an example. So they walk in there and of course now it's emotional. So they're talking about, I love this, but these stairs in the front, I don't like the way the stairs goes out to the door. It's just one of those things. I was like, why? Well, it just seems so, intrusive. I'd rather have the stairs, hidden. And then they walk into the kids' room and they said, oh, but he's now he's now playing guitar and he doesn't have a lot of room to practice in his room. And so, so you start getting that lifestyle connection. You write the stuff down and you go find that house. And then you tour the house with the person and say, hey, do you remember your kid doing the guitar? Here's what I was thinking. This room is a little larger for him, and I think he could find his guitar equipment over here. Plus, it's a little further away, so you don't have to hear him practice. You can practice anytime, all days and nights, and all of a sudden people are like, you're now selling to my needs, my emotional needs as a family household. Mm-hmm. And that person skyrocketed locally because they were able to do that. But sometimes people ask the question in a very sort of non-emotional way. Like, hey, I'll meet you at the Starbucks and I'll ask you these questions. Mm-hmm. Hey, what are your needs? Well, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, those kind of specs.
I love this advice. And with this market changing, he can finally do that because he started working with some friends of mine who are one of the top agents in the nation, but they make new people be a buyer's agent. And so for the last 2 years, it's been a seller's market.
Yep.
Right. He's one of 50, literally one of 50 offers. House goes on the market Thursday. It's sold by Sunday. Mm-hmm. And everybody that was contacting him was coming from at least an hour away. So he's been in a terrible market for a new guy. But now he's got 2 years of experience. He's made some sales. He's with a good agency now, brokerage firm, and the market's changing. So he can really start taking some action and applying, but if to broaden this though, everybody listening to this isn't a realtor.
Yeah. So that's the next step to this is the transferable skill from what I just said was, if you're selling software, if you're selling widgets, whatever, I mean, most of this stuff, I'm not going to say everything, but most is an emotional purchase to the person that's actually going to buy it. And we don't really, we tend to have discovery calls, which by the way, that's our focus here at the Sales Conservatory. We're all about discovery. There's a whole bunch of data that says you want to change the trajectory of your close rates, you fix discovery. That's a whole discipline to itself. And you want to be able to talk in their backyard. You want to pull from what they have. You want to understand the motives behind why it is that they purchased the thing they purchased before. And then use that to your knowledge and advantage, as opposed to say the, speeds and feeds or specs or whatever that people do. I mean, that's what I hear. When I buy real estate, I haven't bought a lot, but we have one realtor, which I've taught her to then treat me this way. So, you kind of want to potentially, if your customers out there, listen and try to teach your sales rep this way, where you can say, I don't know, if you sell software. I had a vendor. A customer that I was selling software to. I was kind of a last minute. It's typical bake off, come do your demo. You have exactly this. Don't say this, make sure you fill out the paperwork, all of that. And I found out that this particular customer prospect at that point was doing this for the 8th time. This was going to be number 8.
Well, everybody knows 10's a charm. So you just got to be patient.
That's right. So I get up there and I just said, before I pitched anything, I said, look, I just want to know what makes this one different than the other 7, because that'll decide whether or not I continue my presentation. And they were just like, what? I'm like, yeah, because if you think that I'm going to come here with some silver bullet thing that overcomes most likely personal and staff objections and all of this other stuff, I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting your time. I'm not going to promise you that. And everybody in the room, there's 22 people in the room. Everybody in the room was like, that's a really good question, because I don't believe this either. This was the buyer.
Yeah.
So eventually the big shot in the room had to stand up and explain what was going to be different. And then I jumped in and said, that's not far enough. And we had this whole new conversation that emerged from that, which, by the way, this rarely happens to me, but I'm cherry picking my stories, right?
Of
so
course.
there were 3 on the short list. I was the first one. The senior vice president of operations went after my presentation. It was at 2:00. Went to her office and called the other 2 vendors and canceled, and said, "Well, we found a person." And they're like, "We didn't even get an at bat. Well, I mean, what's up with that?" And they're like, "There's no way. I know what you're going to do. You're going to do the thing you always do." This guy came and did something that I did not expect to do, but yet wanted somebody to do. Which was, I mean, are we doing this or not? And what's going to be different? And, I'll hold my end of the bargain. You hold the end of the bargain. I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe that. I said, nothing like signing a bad customer, right? Because that hurts your reputation worse than losing a customer.
Yeah.
So
I'm always telling people, like, my goal in my training is not to make a bunch of robots, a bunch of little sales whisperers, right? I want to give them the courage and the confidence to just stand their ground. You're not a whipping boy. You're not there to just give free education. Ask some hard questions. Ultimately, I always tell people, our job is to ask questions that they can't answer.
Yeah.
Because if they have all the answers, they don't need us.
Correct.
So stand your ground. Because like something similar, like what you're saying there, like I'll ask people, if I feel like I'm getting the runaround, I'll say, hey, what are your top 3 non-negotiable criteria when you're blah, blah, blah? Bringing in a new hardware vendor, new software vendor, changing SaaS platforms, looking for a new real estate agent, and you're going to get only one of a couple of answers. Like, here's 10. All right. Here's an analytical person who has thought this thing through. This is legit. Let me listen to the top 10. Which one would you say your top 3? Maybe I'm not the right guy. Great. Like I always tell people, hearing no early is a win.
So I have the one magical question that I ask all the time that I will leave for your listeners is, so you're having a dialogue, right? Maybe some objections, some assertions, some questions, and people get wound up on the answer. Like if I say, I'm a customer. I hate my thing, whatever, and I want a new thing. Don't say, what is it about your thing you hate? Here's what you say. How did you come to that conclusion? That is so much more powerful. And I'll tell you why. Because that's what they're going to do with everything else. Whatever that answer is, that's how they're going to then come to the other conclusions. Right? So my thing sucks. Well, how'd you come to that conclusion? Well, it's down half the time and blah, blah, blah. So, okay, so being down half the time is a problem. Okay. Right. And so now you turn it around and go, okay, let me now explain to you based on those criteria. And sometimes it's, well, my boss hates it. Well, is that a really good answer? Doesn't matter. It's the answer.
If the boss has veto authority, that's the answer.
That's the answer. So now you got to figure out, like, okay, so what do you do with that? All the bells and whistles that you're about to present have nothing to do with the sales, because if the boss doesn't like it, it don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I always say, whatever the question is, yeah, sure, understand the answer, but that isn't the punchline. The punchline is, how did you get to that conclusion?
Mm-hmm.
So, how do what's your son do? And what do other people do? People in this kind of weird situation. Look, people still need to buy stuff. They still need things. They're going to buy the best thing for them. And I do believe that most, if not all, sales are emotionally attached. Therefore, we should do those kinds of things. I'll tell you a little sort of indirect statistic. So people, when they quit, salespeople, any kind of people, 91% of both voluntary and involuntary separations are based on cultural issues. 9%, the other 9% are based on skills, hard stuff, like can't do something, you didn't deliver something, that kind of thing. But 91% is. And so what happens is, if you interview somebody, what do you interview them? You always interview them on that the 9% that they're probably going to quit on. You don't interview them on the 91% that they're going to quit on. The thing that I'm saying about this is, anytime you're interacting with a customer or prospect, keep in mind of that 91%. What are the cultural tenets behind that particular person? And how do you want to, quote unquote, keep employed by that person, meaning having them be your customer, having you be their salesperson? I think of that as an employment. How do you keep that alive is try to figure out that 91% that would separate you, which is the cultural issues. And like I said, I go back to real estate because I want to make it prevalent to you. But this is all very transferable, right? Going to their home and understanding and taking the extra time of all of that. Because I'll tell you, why is it that I think, like, how did I come to the conclusion that 5,000 square feet is too big? So if you're a salesperson trying to sell me a smaller home, that's the question you should be asking me. Because one would say 5,000 square feet, that's a lot of room for two people. You should be able to, swing a cat, not hit anything, right? I mean, whatever, right? It's just, you can do whatever you want there. But for some reason, I have now qualified it of it being too big, where another couple, empty nester, may say, I've got 5,000. It's just not big enough. Because whatever.
Yeah.
I like throwing big parties every weekend or whatever. So that's how you're going to get there. How did you come to that conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And I told them, like in your case, it probably won't make sense for you to move for the next couple of years, right? And I told them, you can't sweat it. There will always be reasons for people to move.
Yep.
There will be divorces. There will be births. He just got married. They bought a house. My oldest daughter's getting married in 3 months. They're got to do something. You move. You get laid off. You get hired. I'm like, just go market. Go put yourself out there. So when the shit happens, people know to call you.
Plus, I think if you, word of mouth, right? I mean, real estate, out of all places, is a word of mouth kind of thing. Because eventually it's all that paperwork in the MLS, whatever that thing is.
MLS.
Yeah. Well, that's the magic, right? Being having the license and be able to do all this other stuff. Which was really weird. I just had my mother move in with us, and she's got Alzheimer's, and I sold her apartment in Miami. Here's an interesting one, completely other side. You have to have a lawyer to sell a house and buy a house, like a real lawyer in Florida.
Oh.
I thought that was odd. So anyway, my point is, but the reason I bring that up actually is there's context, exterior boundaries that may prevent you from, doing the things you need to do.
Yeah.
But I think that, understanding how you've came to that conclusion, dig into that a little bit. Real estate, of course, is a word of mouth thing. He does all that kind of stuff. His reputation will precede him. Mm-hmm. Hey, did you know he comes to somebody's house and asks them a bunch of these questions? I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of different. I've never had that before, right? All that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people are going to be like, really? He sounds like he really cares. Let me give him a call. Yep. That's it. Just compounds itself that way.
Yep. For sure.
The other thing too, and you're talking about circumstances and people having to move and divorces and all this other stuff. I had a sales leader that I coached, and he had this crazy way of hiring salespeople, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it works. One of the things he used to ask during their interview is like hobbies. And what he was looking for was people with expensive hobbies because they were leveraged. And he always was looking to find people that were leveraged. I'll give you an example. He hired this one lady who, by the way, was a great salesperson, but he found out that she likes boating, and she just bought a big ass boat and needed to pay for it. As soon as he found out, he goes, hey, I'd like you to start on Monday, blah, blah, blah. And she just like took it and she hustled her butt off. And it's like, so there's this, the punchline to this one is there's this underlying pinning of people and culture and beliefs and values that work to your favor. And if you know those things from people, including your salespeople and your customers and reps, you can feed them, right? They're hungry for that. You can feed them on what it is that they need.
Yeah. I remember the first time I heard that years ago, and sales rep came in, and I was brand new, and I was just kind of on the side. We were at a conference, and she pulled up and talking to the manager, and she said, "Oh, I just bought a new car." And he was like, "Congratulations." She walked away. He says, "I love that." I was like, what? He says, "Oh, she's motivated to sell now. She's got to pay for that car." I'm like, that's freaking genius.
Yeah, so you meander on these questions. Oh, tell me a little bit about your background. Hey, what kind of things do you like to do for fun? I like traveling to Europe because my family lives in Italy and I go there every quarter. Boom.
And I have 3 ex-wives. You're hired. Yeah. Your ex-wives, 2 kids in college. You're hired.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
start right now.
Because it's compatible to the way they get paid. So I mean, it's again, it's you and I are sort of kidding about this, but at the same time, there's a lot of reality to the motivations that people come from.
Yeah,
including your customers. They have those same kinds of things going on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, very nice. We could pontificate for quite some time. What should people do? They want to get to know you. You've mentioned you got this Vox thingy, huh? Like what the heck?
So Voxer.com. So Dr. Tom Tonkin at Voxer.com. So lots of times, I'll do these podcasts or these interviews, or I write something on LinkedIn. I like to write a lot and do a lot of video kinds of things. And people read it and go, I got this one thing, like this one question. I don't want to set up a meeting, or I don't want to do any of that stuff. Send me a Vox. It's free. Just go to Voxer.com, look me up, Dr. Tom Tonkin, Dr. Tom Tonkin. And, it's an app. It's a phone app. You can download it for free. You just send me the thing and say, hey, on this blog, you said ABC. What'd you mean? Right. Done. Part of it is I just want to lower the barrier of entry to discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my little routine now, I'm on the other side of the hill, if you will. I feel as if I want to give back and leave a legacy. Someday I'll die, and I want somebody to, after I'm dead, say, hey, that guy helped me out. And I know it sounds kind of corny, but there is that motivation in me. Certainly I'm in LinkedIn. One of the things that I like to do is I like to make my points in a conversational manner. So again, Wes, thank you so much for having me on, asking the questions, being conversational and friendly, because there's a lot of richness that came from this. People can listen in, and and they may have a question, and we might have answered a question for them. And so there's a lot of those podcasts out there that I've done. I write blogs. I do a lot of guest blog quoting. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn. I don't try to do I'm not the kind of guy that puts the picture of the cat, hang in there, or anything like that. That's not my that's not my thing. I try to bring in real research. That's one of the things we do here is we do original, real research, rigorous. I've got a partner. He also has a PhD. We don't let any data out before it's time, kind of thing. And so
you're saying you will sell no wine before it's time?
Well, you picked up on that, didn't you? Yeah.
That's an old one, huh? Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it's an old one. Yep. I say that to some of my younger co-hosts.
Is it wine? It was wine, right?
Yeah, it was wine. And they're like, wow, that was really good, Tom. I'm like, yeah, I didn't come up with that. But I think, again, just lowering the barrier of entry to discussion. I think there's way too much pomp and circumstance in our business. SDRs.
I think in the world today, there's too much pomp and circumstance.
Yeah, it's just, I'll tell you something. I'm pretty good about this. SDRs will listen to this, right? I've got a lot of people that sell to me as well. And I will reply to everybody.
I don't say everybody, but sometimes I'll reply and I'll be snarky, but I digress.
No. I mean, snarky.
Some of the outreaches are crap.
Snarky is fine, right?
Some of the outreaches are crap.
Yep. Some snarkiness, but don't leave them on the snarkiness. You got to stick this. You got to stick the reason for the snarkiness.
Yes.
But I will reply, because I think we're all part of this together. We're all selling to each other. We all should learn from each other. We need to. I think sales needs a tremendous overhaul and reform.
Yes.
I had this cute little article that I was going to read to you, but no, we're running out of time. But the bottom line is this particular article, that if I were to read to you, you would agree and you would say, yeah, but we're not really having figure this stuff out. But the article was written in 1936.
Well, send me a link to it. I'll read it in the post-production.
Yeah.
I'll link to it.
Yeah, so I'll send it to you, and it's got all this stuff like, salespeople must know their business and their customer's business. That's like a statement, right? And they'll say, people go, yeah, that's true. And you would say, well, how true is it? Well, maybe for 50% of the time, whatever. What I find interesting is this article was written in 1936. So we're still chasing some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's our own damn fault.
Yep.
And anyway, I think we need to help each other. So when the SDRs, or you get the phone call or something, either listen to their pitch, and if you got time, or if you don't have time, tell them I don't have time, or if it sucks, tell them it sucks. I mean, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think we need to fix this from the inside out.
For sure. That requires taking ownership, huh?
Yes, sir.
We started out back in the beginning.
Well, I am curious about your son now. So hopefully there's a few things that we dropped. Because now, I mean, he's a budding sales professional. I make that my job to know about this stuff. And I am now going to be sending you messages, finding out about him, because I want him to totally rock it.
Cool. Thank you, sir. All right, Dr. Tom Tonkin, salesconservatory.com. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been great.
Thanks, Wes. Talk to you soon.
All right. Have a great day.
I love smart dudes that are not too full of themselves. And Dr. Tom is one of those guys. So like we said, take responsibility. It's all my fault. Okay. And then from there, you're good to go. Stop feeding your negative feelings so well. All right. Clear your head. Surround yourself with people that want the best for you. Okay. Understand the true job of sales. Understand the true role of a sales professional. All right. Understand, go back and listen to this if you have to, right? Get better at discovery calls. Get to the emotions. Understand their motives. Things will get easier for you after that. But look, it's hard when you're doing this. That's why I train for 90 minutes, 6 days a week to get better at jiu-jitsu. And after 5.5 years, I'm kind of good. I'm not a black belt. All right. Despite 5.5 years, 5 to 6 days a week. So I'm kind of good. So how are you spending your time? Yeah, I know you're going through the motions. You're updating some CRMs. You're doing some quotes. But what's the old adage? Have you lived 75 years, or have you lived 1 year 75 times? Talking about getting older. So are you doing that in your career? A lot of people are. Okay, it's all right to admit it. But once you admit it, you have to do something about it. Invest in yourself. Find somebody, find somebody to help you change the game. Or otherwise, what you got is as good as it's going to get. That's the secret to growth. Admit it's your fault, then do something about it. All right, come join us. Sellmoreofeverything.com. Thanks for listening. I'll go sell something.